Hello, welcome to Navigating the New Normal, Episode 7, Fueling Innovation, Navigating Funding Channels for HBCUs to Foster Connectivity. My name is Krystle Pearson, and I am the Senior Marketing Manager for the Education team here at Kajeet. I am so excited to have an amazing panelist of guests who are going to help me to share with you different funding channels, connectivity options, and solutions for HBCUs. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we have Tramaine Martin, Colette Johnson, and myself, and we are going to chat about HBCUs. I'm excited to have them both, and I'm definitely going to give them a chance to speak, but I want to give you a little background knowledge on who we have with us today. Tramaine Martin is a sales leader at CDW who is passionate about connecting HBCU clients into solutions that are helping to develop the leaders of tomorrow. His dedication to understanding the needs of underserved communities and universities is what has led him to be one of the guests for today's webinar. When asked what fuels his passion for innovation in his current role, he shares, "I am excited to carry the momentum forward to close the digital divide and deliver best-in-class integrated solutions and support while partnering with a purpose." Thank you so much, Tramaine, for being here with us. Would you like to say anything in addition to what I've shared to our guests today?
No, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be here, and want to make sure that we continue to keep the lines of communication open with historically Black colleges and universities that are out there, as well as minority serving institutions. Right, we want to make sure that we include them as well. But for the purpose of today and my mission here at CDW, we do focus in on HBCUs, and we're a national team supporting all historically Black colleges across the country, and want to make sure that we bring those best-in-class integrated solutions and support, as well as subject matter experts and resources to the table when it comes to working with HBCUs. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. On a professional level, I'm so excited to have you here on the call with us. I recently met you maybe about a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have to get Tramaine to come over and talk a little bit about what we have going on here at Kajeet, as well as the solutions that you provide on your end. As a former a graduate of Virginia State University, which is a historically Black college, this is a passion for me. This is a topic that I am so excited to share about. So I'm excited to have you here, and we're going to kick it over to Colette. Colette is a 20-plus year veteran in educational sales. She has been with Kajeet for 10 years, having earned a business and administration degree in marketing concentration from Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia. She actively supports a number of key organizations and associations nationally. She is a mentor in Gwinnett County schools, having working with them for 18 plus years. In her spare time, she loves to volunteer as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, where she pledged undergrad. She has been recognized for her many sales and sorority achievements over the years. And in her spare time, she loves traveling, decorating, and spending time with her family. One of the things I love to share about Colette and myself is that I am actually a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So it's always interesting for us to have that connection with the HBCU working here at Kajeet and everything that we're doing within our company to provide support for HBCUs. So Colette, is there anything else that you'd like to share that I haven't shared from your introduction?
I just want to echo my appreciation for you and all that you do, and for the great things Kajeet's bringing to the table. So looking forward to the continued partnership with Tramaine, and I'm just excited about all things HBCU. So thanks again, everyone.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. We're going to proceed to question number 1. All right. What are some of the key funding opportunities or channels in your experience that you've seen, Tramaine or Colette, that HBCUs can tap into to foster connectivity and innovation within their institution?
Sure, I'll be glad to start that off. I'm excited because we know that there's currently $65 billion with a B that the Biden administration's called for to help with broadband deployment. So what does that mean for HBCUs? Opportunity, right? Some of the most, you think about the issues that plague these institutions, our institutions, is the fact that funding is lacking in many cases. So how do we create that level playing field? Understandably, having the ability to have those financial resources will help considerably. So with that being said, these federal subsidies are there set to close that digital divide. And again, what great news is it for HBCUs than that? So just to kind of give you an idea to everyone here, there are a number of these various plans that are out there, funding sources. So just to give you a few, the American Rescue Plan Act, which you may refer to or may have heard of as ARPA, that helps cities and areas to, again, have that connectivity component. You have the USDA, which has a program called Reconnect. Another great way that HBCUs are utilizing those funds from the USDA to bridge that divide. You've got the NTIA, that's a huge one. That particular one is the National Telecommunications Information Administration. We'll talk a little bit more about that in detail, but under that is CMC, which is the Connecting Minority Communities. Just to give you an idea, 43 HBCUs received funding under that particular funding source. BEAD is another one. When you're looking at broadband equity access and deployment, again, those rural areas that are plagued and unfortunately the inability to have the equitable accessibility is a factor. That's another. So again, what we want to bring to the table are resources that understandably will be able to help our institutions thrive. And Tramaine, would you like to add anything to that as well?
Yes. When we look at some of the yearly grants that are out there for HBCUs, right, we look at some of the Title III Part B funding, and there's two parts to that. There's the discretionary and then the formula. And both of these grants come from the Department of Education. And example of some of the uses there that we've seen clients use and what the Department of Education calls out as far as making sure that there's transparency and alignment to the actual grant. We've seen it be used for computers, as well as mobile devices, projectors, interactive boards. So things that are going to be there to help the student have a better impact on the student as far as their ability to learn while being in a remote environment or a hybrid environment, as well as making sure with the interactive boards that we're going ahead and modernizing some of those classrooms that are out there, because not even just HBCUs, but other institutions, right? They're behind in the times as far as classroom modernization. So the Department of Education realizes that, and that's why they have some of these Title III fundings that are out there. And then we also have the Stop Violence grant that's put out there by the Department of Justice. That's a $53 million grant on an annual basis, and it's for physical security. So when you think cameras, you think software that aligns with the cameras for the closed circuit television or any types of alert systems or digital signage, right? Those are where we see a lot of opportunities to help schools with, achieving those type of grants. And then also there's that digital equity grant that's out there, and that's a competitive grant. And it's a smaller grant when you compare it to the rest of the grants that are out there that I previously mentioned, but there's still opportunity out there to go for that grant. And a lot of the example uses that we see there are just student devices and really aimed at a lot of the necessary equipment that the student would need in order to achieve a better education and making sure that the staying connected while they're working in the remote environment.
Perfect. Tramaine, I love what you mentioned about the Stop the Violence, because I can recall just visiting, different colleges and universities, and there's always a very, very high prevalence and presence for school security and campus security. If you didn't have a badge or if you didn't show the proper identification, you were not getting on campus. And then even with the expansion of buildings and construction and just expanding the network and the connectivity, as well as infrastructure within these campuses, within HBCUs, hearing about digital signage being available underneath that is also something that I think is a great thing for historically Black colleges and universities to look into as well, to be able to provide funding support for that. So awesome. Let's head on over to question number 2. Now that we've talked about those funding sources, let's talk a little bit about leveraging those. How can HBCUs leverage those available funding sources, particularly to benefit from technologies like your 4G, 5G embedded Chromebooks, your hotspot, your private wireless networks? We know that a lot of students they may or may not stay on campus. We have commuter students. We have students that our adult education students. So how can HBCUs use some of the funding sources that we previously mentioned to support those LTE embedded Chromebooks and things of that nature to provide connectivity for those students on the go? Colette, you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, I think, hearing from Tramaine, the partnership with Kajeet and CDW, that's a start, right? I think when you take a look at, the offerings and just, again, our commitment to leading the change as it relates to closing that digital divide with our connectivity solutions, that would be definitely one of the ways. But, conversations like we're having right now, that's totally a start. So I think that we need to make sure that we're continuing to ensure that these students have the success, both as you referenced on and off campus. So, continue to feel free to reach out to us. I know we're going to have other aspects of the funding resources available to those that want it afterwards. So again, how do we, as you had referenced, be able to provide that ability to benefit not only the institution, but, provide those devices that Kajeet provides. So we've got devices for, understandably, lending programs. So the students are at home or in the classroom, they've got the ability to connect, right? We've got Wi-Fi access points. So to the point that Tramaine was making, and you referenced, we've got those common areas, we've got stadiums, we've got off-campus housing. Those are some of the ways that you can certainly, see where that aspect of leveraging those funding sources could be utilized. You can think about Wi-Fi, so passenger Wi-Fi. So everything from perhaps the shuttle buses to the activity buses. And then lastly, mobile networks. So as we look at, community events, sporting events, I know you just referenced a digital signage. So again, when you're talking about institutions and leveraging the funding that's available, those are yet a few of the ways. Tramaine?
Even kind of think about for they have different homecomings that come up every year, and being able to provide connectivity support for vendors that are on campus during that time, and having that built-in network for you to be able to manage on your end. For me personally, I love the LTE embedded Chromebooks, only because sometimes you will go somewhere, and Tramaine talked about school and campus security earlier, and you think about network security and how if students have devices and they're connecting them to unknown networks or unprotected networks, then that brings on a whole nother array of issues that could happen, as opposed to a network that's already built with your connectivity already in hand with the device, which gives you a little bit more security for your students as well as those that are coming in and on campus. Tramaine, did you have anything you'd like to share?
Not too much, just because, that was a great explanations, right? But, I guess really for me to sum it up, it's like, leveraging those technologies for HBCUs, right? That can be huge and effective, and as well as instrumental in enhancing any of the connectivity access and the funding that's out there that we previously spoke about, especially when you look at the connecting minority communities, right? The folks who wrote those grants and the schools that went after those grants a couple of years ago when that was open, right? Now they're reaping the benefits of being awarded that grant, right? And if you look at it's a public site. If you look at some of the things and some of the project descriptions that the institutions are aiming at, most of them are aiming at making sure that they can put devices in the hands of their students, as well as deliver on the access and the internet, where we have some of these internet deserts out there in the country. And even more notable is that they're reaching beyond just the student, but they're reaching into the community, as they're the hub for a lot of these communities that are out there. And they're even, making sure that they can continue to develop that community as a way of making sure that we can uplift the community. So they're looking at ways to develop the community from a learning perspective as far as technology is concerned, and even some of them being the internet hub for the community that's around them. So I just find it very interesting when I talk to a lot of our clients at CIO level, what they're getting into and how they're really lifting up the community, right? Because it's not just about the device and the student, it's also about the community that the institution's located in, right? We think about it as a small city with some of these institutions because they're that large, and they really have a very large impact on the state as well as the surrounding areas in driving revenue and driving jobs and opportunities.
Thank you. Let's move on to question number 3. Technology plays a crucial role in fostering connectivity. How can they leverage those funds effectively to enhance connectivity and access? And this question leads me back to a few statements that both Colette and Tramaine mentioned. I'm going to go to you first, Tramaine, because you mentioned a really big number. You said Title B, and I believe you said 396 million. So let's talk a little bit about the availability of those funds. Where would someone who is an advocate for their HBCU or someone that is interested in finding more about those funding sources go to get information on how they can use that within their organization?
Yeah, well, sure. Well, definitely, there's a lot of government sites out there where you can find different grants that are out there. And aside from utilizing the internet, right, we have internally at most of the institutions, we find that there is an actual director of Title B funds or Title III funds within those institutions. So I would say start within your own institution first to find out what type of grants have been applied for and how you can utilize those monies to be able to get devices and computers and projectors and interactive boards in the hands of IT as well as for the students. So that would be a great start, right? And if you don't have a Title III coordinator or director, right, that's something where you can understand a little bit more about how the school or how the institution goes about obtaining grants and who's writing grants. And then there's also grant writer services out there that you can partner with and they'll take you through the full spectrum of the grant from the time of being able to go after the grant until you're awarded the grant and what it looks like as far as the whole process in between. So those are just a couple of tips of where we can look at some of the grants there and how we can go about being able to be eligible for those grants.
Perfect. Thank you. We're going to move on to question number 4. Considering the funding sources available, can you shed light on the successes or collaborations that you personally have seen with other HBCUs that have achieved in terms of securing funding and utilizing those sources to enhance connectivity and, of course, drive innovation? Because we know that once the funding is there and that particular HBCU takes advantage of that funding, then the drive for innovation is going to come naturally. So what are some things or some HBCUs that you've collaborated with that you've seen that this has been success? I'm going to kick this one to you, Colette,
Sure.
first, and then we'll come back to Tramaine.
Certainly. Yes, in terms of successes we've seen, I'll just give you an idea. There's a school in Alabama. This particular institution had recently won the NTIA grant for $3 million. This grant was to help foster, understandably, the students that were not capable, understandably, of having devices available at their disposal for both on and off-campus needs. This particular institution ended up getting Maestro devices from us, as well as smart spots, which are essentially hotspots. You may have heard them referred to. Those particular hotspots or smart spots in this instance, we pride ourselves in being able to provide all of the major wireless carriers. So, having a combination, because in the aspects, as you referenced, these rural communities, in many cases, connectivity from one provider may not be sufficient. So being able to have that ability to have a multitude of AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, US Cellular in some cases really set us apart from a competitive perspective. So, that was one way that we've seen that go to use. We have completed phase 1 of their funding, and we're on our way to phase 2 of that particular institution's HBCU out of Alabama. Another one comes to mind is an HBCU that is in Kentucky. This was, as Tramaine alluded to, the Title III director that was familiar with Kajeet from just our 20 years in this space and in providing connectivity for communities. They reached out as a partnership with CDW, as a matter of fact. So this particular institution was looking for solutions for their low-income off-campus students, because this was during the time of the pandemic, understandably. So we're talking 2021, and they had a number of students, understandably, that couldn't connect. So what originated from the unfortunate times that we had with COVID have now, being an existing client, possibilities are still existing beyond what we initially started out with So that was another that they received grants funding to be able to provide for those particular students. So that again, existing client of ours still at this point. There's an HBCU, it's in Virginia. I think you may know, Krystle, we have the ability, as we know, to have those rolling study halls, the aspects of shuttle buses, what we continue to have those means on wheels. So with that particular instance, they're using shuttle buses to both pick up and drop off students. So they're utilizing our devices just for that particular purpose. They've actually increased that number of devices to continue on with their fleet of activity buses. So for everything from the athletics to various trips, they're utilizing our devices as well. I mean, I could go on and on about other HBCUs, but just to kind of give you a glimpse into 3 of them there that have received various aspects of funding and how they're utilizing it to have success as we collaborate.
And if memory serves me correctly, what you mentioned, that is pretty much all over the nation type. We've hit different areas. So
Yes.
That is awesome that HBCUs are taking advantage of those sources and that we are able to shine a light on the successes that they've had. Have you had any in your experience, Tramaine, that you'd like to share?
Oh, yes, there's several out there, but I would say probably most notably, and what I feel like is probably the most impactful story is again aligned with the NITA grant that a school in the state of Missouri received, right? And they utilized this grant on the device side for students to create a student one-to-one program, right? Previously, the student was responsible for bringing their own device and being able, use that device to get their schoolwork done. But the school was having a big retention issue as well as a graduation rate issue. Between the president and the provost and the CIO, they introduced a one-to-one program by utilizing the NITA grant funding that they received. And in that, right, they reached out to CDW and we were able to align them with a proper solution as far as the device was concerned, but not just the device, looking at the actual management of that device as well. And, CDW has lots of services and capabilities that we wrap around devices, right? So CDW was able to not only get the device in their hands and ready to go, but we were also able to, image that device with their image and create some laser etching opportunities to make that student feel like they were a part of something, right? And, it's a little, I guess it's not surprising how much something like that will give a student pride and will give a student, making them feel like they belong to an institution that cares about what they do. So they have seen an uprising or in a lot of their retention. And of course, this just happening this year. We haven't seen the signs of the graduation rate, but the actual retention of the student and the overall satisfaction with the student and their device and being able to get their work done has definitely seen an uptick. And, we really pride ourselves at CDW in order to be able to take, a full solution, a full spectrum solution from beginning to end, and even handing these devices out to students and providing that service where, the institution didn't have the bandwidth to get that done. That was something that CDW was able to really just hone in on and be able to make sure that we're providing and making an impactful outcome for that institution. And we've done things like that across the country with HBCUs in Delaware, Washington, D.C., you name it. We're there doing those great things and making sure that, our clients can lean on us to make sure that, they can go ahead and make an impact within their community as well as within the institution.
Awesome. I'm a former K-12 technology director, and I can attest that device deployment is no fun. So I can help you imagine how relieved that HBCU was to have that support when you're thinking about deploying devices and getting them into the hands of students. So we're going to get ready to wrap up, but I just have one quick question because I remember Colette mentioning CMC. And she also mentioned the number 43. So Colette, the 43 HBCUs that receive those monies, can you tell our listeners where they could possibly go to view that information? Because you showed me recently and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that this existed. So please share that bit of knowledge with those that are listening so that they can also have access and to see whether or not their HBCU is one of the qualifying opportunities.
Certainly. And I love being able to surprise you. So that's good. But with that being said, technology, as we know, funding continues to be one of the biggest challenges. And so, one of the things, we pride ourselves with at Kajeet is being a resource, right? Kind of an extension of the team of the institution that we're working with. And so, just out there, just uncovering the aspects of additional resources, as Tramaine alluded to earlier, came across the CMC, Connecting Minority Communities. So if you go directly to that site, Connecting Minority Communities, it's cmc.gov, and we could certainly provide that in the chat there for everyone. I know we've got some follow-up information, but what I found most appealing to that entire process was you could go in by state. So you can actually, first off, let me go back and drill down by category. So HBCUs. Again, this is $260+ million that was out there available. And as I referenced, 43 HBCUs are actually taking advantage of that funding component. So again, going to that website, doing a drill down, a drop down to the HBCU category. Then if you want to take it a step further, you can see at that point, you've got a map, right, of the US with all the 101, 102 HBCUs. But the 43 that in this instance have actually been awarded. From that, you could take it and drill down to a state level. So from that perspective, you're really getting granular and you're seeing how many dollars are allocated to each of those 43 HBCU institutions. So, that's what Tramaine and I are here to do, is to help. We want to be an additional resource. We pride ourselves on being managed and turnkey, right? But in terms of just something as simple as maybe just trying to help seek funding for those that are in need as it relates to, again, creating that level academic playing field for these students. Feel free to utilize us. That's what this is all about, is opening the dialogue and getting those resources out. But again, I can't be more pleased with how just user-friendly this particular program is, because again, you're able to really get down deep into the aspects of, how each of the areas that are receiving these funding components. And it's not just that particular website. This is a great one. But again, as we alluded to earlier, we've got some other resources that are going to be coming out to those that are on here that would like to know more about ones that we have available. Our marketing team does a phenomenal job. So hats off to the Kajeet marketing team, because what they're able to do is to provide to those that sign up for, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Krystle, but resources. Yeah, for resources. And in 10 years I've been here, one of the things I love the most is that, we want to give information out. So, those various vehicles, Krystle, that you can maybe speak to, that they can subscribe and get additional information. I would love for you to do so, because again, that's one of the things where, helping each other really comes in handy. So
yes, absolutely. So if you visit www.kajeet.com, we have resources, we have guides, we have other support materials. We also have a talk to us button. If you click that, you can insert any information that you like to have a conversation about, and our team will connect you with the appropriate parties here at Kajeet to provide that level of support. So we're here whenever you need us, whether it's just to talk about your opportunities, the availability of resources, as well as services offered. So that wraps up our webinar. We did it. HBCU connectivity. I'm so thankful that you all agreed to join us. Thank you so much, Tramaine. It was a pleasure meeting you once again and having this conversation with you. How can those that are on the call connect with you as well?
You feel free to email me at hedhbcu@cdw.com. And, we'll make sure that as a team, that's our team inbox. We'll make sure that anything that comes through there, right, we're always making sure that we're supportive and responsive. So as a team, right, we aim to make sure that we're supporting HBCUs in any way that they need us to. And, no matter where you are on your technology or support services journey, CDW is there to assist and make sure that we're bringing those subject matter experts to the table for you and producing the outcomes that you're looking for your students and your institution.
And the same, Colette, how can those that are listening reach you for more additional information? Certainly. My email address is going to be cjohnson@kajeet.com. That's one of the ways, most certainly going through Krystle and the team as you may see fit. We want to make sure, as the motto for Clark Atlanta is find a way or make one. We want to make sure that we're providing additional ways for you to connect, understandably, but it's been a pleasure, hopefully enlightening you on ways that we can continue the funding sources for HBCUs, now and indefinitely. So it's been a pleasure. Well, there you have it. That wraps up episode 7 of Navigating the New Normal. My name is Krystle Pearson. I'm your host. And remember, here at Kajeet, we believe that every student should be connected no matter where they choose to study. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time.